have the two most famous Johns of Pedasi, Jonathan Clay out of our office in Pedasi, and Mr. John Brock, a Pedasi and Panama veteran, head grill master over at and rib cooker extraordinaire at Smiley's. If you guys haven't been to Smiley's, it is a Pedasi institution. And in fact, the first and the last stop of anybody coming into Pedasi. So, you know, I wanted to get both Johns on the line because, well, John Brock has been living in Panama. John, when did you first come to Panama, JB?
1997.
Oh boy, cool. And was that a visit or you stayed on that trip?
I came for 3 days with George Allen, the governor of Virginia, for what I thought was a bogus trade mission, and I'm still here. How
about that? Yeah, and for those of you who are counting at home, that's about 24 years, I think, approx, and that is about 4 to 5 presidencies. So John Brock has seen the evolution of Panama, and came to Pedasi, planted the flag in Pedasi, John, how many years ago?
I think we moved here about 12 years ago, 13 years ago, and we opened the restaurant in 2011.
Yeah, there you go, with his beautiful wife, Ermelinda, who is a staple and a fixture at Smiley's. So John, you know, and of course you guys already probably know Jonathan Clay. He's American, been living in Panama for
10 years.
10 years, the golden anniversary.
Yes, sir.
Been with us for the better part of that 10 years, and is having a fantastic year in Pedasi this year, selling a lot of real estate, helping a lot of folks. But, you know, today is not necessarily about real estate per se, although, you know, that's what me and Jonathan Clay do for a living. But, you know, I wanted to get John Brock on the line and really just to kind of give everybody a sense of where's Pedasi right now? Like, what's going on? So, John, let's paint a picture. How has business been for your restaurant over the last couple weeks? Who's coming in? Where are they coming from? And kind of what's the scene these days?
All right. Right now, the majority of our business is domestic tourism, because there's no European tourism because they can't fly back and forth, I don't believe yet. But there's been a sharp increase in the number of, I call them real estate tourists, if you will, who are coming to check Pedasi out. There's more in the last month than I've seen in any other month since we've been open. It's just,
that's 10 years.
It's a significant change in the last, since the quarantine between the States and Panama was lifted. That's the change.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. So on the European front, because we're getting a lot of emails and phone calls and actually some sight unseen closed deals, which Jonathan can attest to from the European market. Was that, say, leading up to the quarantine, or at least we've had a few breaks in the quarantine over the last year, but I mean, did you see a lot of those guys before COVID, John? A lot of Germans or, you know, Brits or Españoles?
Yeah, European clients were always a big part of our business, more so in July, August, September when they're vacationing.
Right.
But year round, it's a big chunk of our business, so that's not there right now.
Right. Yeah, no, fair. But it sounds like at least, you know, around Christmas time of this past year, or maybe it was probably just slightly after, you guys, I mean, I remember coming through Pedasi, and I mean, Smiley's is always kind of bursting at the seams on a Friday night. They do an incredible, you know, actually Jonathan and Ted have been playing they've been known to play from time to time at Smiley's on a Friday night. You know, it's situated on Main Street, you guys, and John, obviously John Brock plays as well, of course, on the keys and on the vocals. So it's situated on Main Street, right? And Pedasi, Main Street, you can't miss it because it's literally just you go, either you drive through it or you stop, but you got to go through it to get south. So John is situated in such a way where literally like he sees traffic, people come and talk to him, and he's been working the grill there for so long that he knows everybody, right? So yeah, okay, cool. And what are you seeing, John? What's the scuttlebutt? Why are Americans coming to Pedasi, or Canadians, or why did Europeans really appreciate? What do they tell you?
I think Pedasi has established an identity over the years as a cool place to live for expats. That's been going on for maybe a dozen years, back in the days when you and I used to work together in the city.
Yeah.
And so the name recognition is out there. It shows up on, I forget some of the different groups out there, Living Abroad or whatever. It shows up there well, and more recently in the last 2 years, Pedasi has gotten some good coverage on international media, different magazines. I think the most recent was Washington Post or Wall Street Journal. I don't know. So that's part of it. I think it's just name recognition. If you look up Panama, retirement, expats, or whatever, Pedasi is going to be somewhere near the top of the list.
Right on. Well, Jonathan, you've been living in Panama for a long time. You're a well-traveled guy. You did Peace Corps up in the northern part of the country. Why do people, let's say you probably see them and encourage them to check out other parts of the country. Why do they end up gravitating towards Pedasi? Why do they choose it instead of these other places?
Well, a lot of people, hey, and by the way, hello, everybody. Hey, Ken, Hey, John. Thanks for being here today. For a lot of people, Pedasi offers them an opportunity to come and sort of disconnect, right? Traditionally. Beautiful beaches. You can put your phone on mute or airplane mode or leave it at home. Head to the beach and disconnect. But more recently, Pedasi has given people an opportunity to come and plug in. The infrastructure has been improving in Pedasi year after year after year. It's easier to get here, and it's easier to still stay connected to whatever it is you have to stay connected to, whether that be family, back home, a job. Digital nomads are finding Pedasi to be an excellent place to settle. We've got fiber optic line now, I believe, running through or in the works to get buried along the main street of Pedasi. And John, maybe you have some more info on that. You're a little bit more plugged in to that than I am. But Pedasi is growing, and so is sort of the Pedasi offering. We have traditionally our surfing, fishing, scuba diving, anything water sport oriented. And around that is growing up a set of businesses and services that offer more people more employment, access to goods and services that they didn't get here before. So Pedasi is just getting a lot more depth in terms of what it's offering people. And digital nomad or not, Pedasi is a beautiful area. It's got beautiful beaches, and that's number one probably reason why people come to Pedasi.
Right on, man. Yeah, the day that the Mini Super on Main Street, that's like 3 down from our office, the day they got couscous, I was like, oh man, Pedasi has arrived. Just, the whole, it's the economy, it's goods, it's the economy, stupid.
And those little things are big indicators of change in the area.
That's it, man. Because there's enough people asking for it that are coming from different backgrounds. It's like, okay, bring it. JC, awesome question. So I don't know, Jonathan, I also call Jonathan Clay JC. So we have a commenter here, JC. You're absolutely right. So the question, you guys can read it, right? It's more expensive than Cherokee beaches. So I think you got to compare apples to apples. And Jonathan Clay, I'd love for you to also take a kind of a non-biased crack at this. So I think, first of all, you got to compare apples to apples. Cherokee compared to Pedasi. a lot of the beachfront real estate that we're selling, and that's for sale, is actually within a gated community. So that's going to drive up the price just because you've got, utilities, you've got road, you've got the structure usually of a homeowners association or some other entity that's collectively paying for costs. So, that'll drive up prices a little bit as far as comparing one to the other. But yeah, why would you say in general Pedasi beach real estate, Jonathan, is a bit more expensive than a place like La Barqueta out in Cherokee?
Well, okay. So if we assume the premise of that question to be true, it comes down to supply and demand. Pedasi is an area that is surrounded by beach. Beach is one of our main attractions. Yet, in terms of real estate, there's not a whole lot of Pedasi beachfront for sale.
True beachfront, yeah.
It's a scarce commodity, and so scarcity is going to drive the prices up. As for comparing it to Chiriquí, send me a link maybe of what you're seeing online, please, and we can have a look. But just on the face of it, I would say supply and demand. Pedasi beaches are incredible. I mean, we've got amazing beaches, and the testament to that is our some of the $1 million mansions that you see overlooking them. And some of the illustrious personalities that we have living and owning in the area, like Prince Max, billionaires.
Yeah.
So, supply and demand. I think there's a relative scarcity of beachfront. So when a good beachfront opportunity does come up on the market, it's the early bird catches the worm.
Yeah, no, there's not a whole lot out there. And John Brock, if you want to sort of take a stab at this one too, but my last 2 cents there are also that the town of Pedasi actually adds some value to the real estate itself versus a place like La Barqueta or even further west, Las Olas. There's not really a town per se. There's kind of like a little strip, and of course you got David. JB, what do you think? Jonathan Brown.
You kind of touched on it. The big difference for me, and I'm not really familiar with real estate out that way, a little bit familiar here in town, of course, but the biggest difference to me is in Pedasi, there's a community. It's a sense of community among the expats. It's a community that's mixed with locals and expats. So it's a very international community, but folks from North America can feel at home here. And I think that's the big difference. Nobody's on their own in Pedasi.
Yeah, no, it's unlike any. I mean, Jonathan Clay shared this observation with either the sales team or with me directly many years ago when you went up to, what's that place that I got married or I proposed in that little town?
Santa
Fe. Yeah. Santa Fe is kind of like it's been kind of like an up and coming boquete for a while, but it's still coming. It hasn't gotten up yet. But it's, how can I say this? It just doesn't have the vibe, right? Like no other place, and this is going to sound, I don't want it to sound too salesman-y, but people that live in Pedasi get this, people that have been there. No other place in Panama has the same culture of locals being super integrated with expats and vice versa, just full acceptance, just total integration on both sides, right? Like locals are totally cool to go into like kind of expat places, and expats are completely welcome at typical like local spots, right? And same thing for cultural, same thing for barbecues, same thing for churches, like all of that across the board. And nowhere else, not in Coronado, not in Panama City, I would say not even in Boquete, where a lot of the locals, well, it's all good. I'm not going to cast aspersions, but Pedasi's got some magic mix there, and it's really cool. But I don't want this to be about rah-rah Pedasi, but let's keep rah-rah a little bit. What's coming down the pipeline?
On that note, Ken, I've often heard, Smiley's, which is right across the street from us, by the way. I'm looking at it right now. As the expat spot in Pedasi. And yeah, while that's true, I've also often heard from John that the majority of his clientele are Panamanian local, patrons. And so, yeah, that Smiley's is a nice sort of microcosm of the melting pot that is Pedasi.
Yeah, totally. Little slice of the essence. And yeah, a perfect example. What's coming down the pipe? What are you guys hearing? What's the scuttlebutt as far as infrastructure development? I mean, we just got that new road to Vinao, which is amazing. Saves
Excellent.
suspension budgets nationally. JB?
I think Jonathan touched on it. It's a change that's here, but it's improving as internet access, our speeds. Right now at home, I'm running 250 megs. And 2 years ago, maybe 2.5, 3. So that is huge. The second thing is
That's Cableonda, right?
Say again?
Provider is, in your case, Cableonda?
Yes, the fiber optic, excuse me. That's really the best game in town. I'm not a Cableonda fan or anything like that. It's just they're extending their fiber optic service throughout Pedasi and beyond. And so that's one big thing. The Notergy, everybody's least favorite energy provider when there's an interruption, but they, in response to some pressure from the community and the government, are extending a second line from Las Tablas. And what that does is creates a loop. So if there's an interruption along the way, Pedasi and beyond isn't out of power because there's a backup line. It's a loop, so it can go in either direction. And once that's completed, that's a game changer. I don't even want to tell you how many hours are on our generators at the restaurant. It's just phenomenal how many outages, but it's still way better than it was when we first got here. I remember the second year I was here, we were 3 or 4 days without power because there was a fire at the slaughterhouse and it burned down one of the poles. We don't have that anymore, but we still get power outages from 5 seconds to 6 hours, maybe 7 hours at the longest, but that's about to change. There was a massive water improvement program about 4 years ago. It wasn't perfect, but it's better than it was. It's way better than it was. They still have a ways to go. There's still a few neighborhoods in town that have a weak water supply, but the mayor has been very good in applying pressure to Idan, the water agency, to plow down some more wells, some other improvements, and we're getting there. So it's a different ball game. And those two things, along with the road to Vinao, everything seems to be going in the right direction.
That's it, man. That's the name of the game in real estate. I mean, that's how cities expand or how cities get put on the map. It's roads, power, water, and these days, internet, right? And 5 years ago, it was all sporadic. Water was sporadic, power was sporadic, internet kind of sucked. They didn't even have couscous yet.
One of the things we're waiting on is for Jonathan Clay to turn up his guitar a little louder because they can barely hear it down at the beach. So
we're waiting for extra line capacity but it'll happen.
Liturgy.
We're gonna buddy. We're gonna crank it up.
Rock and roll. Cool. Well, Michael, thank you for the shout out. Jonathan, I hear that every day, literally. Like, we're so grateful for folks, and we're also grateful to have people like Jonathan on the team. Just straight shooting, does what he says he's going to do, and that's kind of all that you can ask from a real estate agent, and knows the market. Well, yeah. So, I mean, JB, you guys start serving lunch here in about 20 minutes. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. But yeah, I mean, unless we have some other questions from the audience, let's talk schools for a second. I know, JB, you got your kids already graduated. Jonathan Clay, yours are probably spread throughout the world. Sorry, that's not appropriate for live. But yeah, what is the school situation for for Pedasi these days? Do we still have some options for incoming expat families?
Jonathan probably knows more than I do on that. The local schools are still online only, and not so successful right now.
Public schools, yeah.
Especially in Banal, and it's changing some here in Pedasi. It's like there's homeschooling groups, and in Banal there's I think it's ASA has what I call free range kids school. It's a phenomenal educational experience where kids are surfing in the morning before class. They hike up to the waterfall and talk about geography and whatever. It's just phenomenal what I see, and that's becoming kind of a magnet for younger families with children. But right now, if you're coming to Pedasi with young children, there aren't a lot of options other than homeschooling or the community in Banal. And it's that great in Banal that there are people that drive there every single day, twice, to and from.
Yeah, and I think the last year has made online learning a lot more palpable and mainstream even. JC, any additional comments on the school scenario these days?
John hit it on the head. Online for local public schools still, and then there's some sort of a group homeschooling that goes on in the area, right. And then of course the Manglares school down in Cañas that he was referring to.
Oh yeah, yep. Which is still a bit of a hike, but yeah, okay, cool. I don't know, guys. I mean, I think that was a pretty awesome broad overview from two guys in the know, and me trying to throw out questions that people might be asking out there. So yeah, I mean, unless we have any other questions, I will say happy Friday. Look for both of these guys in all likelihood at Smiley's this afternoon. John, were you getting ready to say something?
Well, I just wanted to thank you for cutting it off short, because this is the longest I've gone without using profane language, and I'm pretty proud of myself. But I don't know how much further I can hold this.
Hell yeah. All right, buddy. Well, I mean, I could break the damn ice if you need me to, but anyway, no, kidding. Wonderful. Well, thanks, guys. I do appreciate both of you popping on, and we'll catch any questions if you're watching this not live. So thank you to you both, and hasta pronto. See you guys soon.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, ciao.